again to another tutorial by Bernard Parsons here, and from Studio Parsons. Um, you can always go to www.studioparsons.com to check out any of the tutorials or some of the works that I've done. I'm continuing again with another tutorial on using Photoshop to colorize drawings for character design. What I have here is a character that I've drawn quite a while back. I don't throw away anything. I keep everything that I have ever drawn pretty much in my entire lifetime up until now. And I always felt that drawings that you keep are always waiting to be exposed in a way where time and technology permits to allow you to recreate the drawing itself to make it perfect. What do I mean by that? It's just simply taking the Photoshop skills that I've acquired over the years and have gained to kind of take this image that I have here and convert it into a high quality graphical image with color and texture. Now I could have done it before, and it's not that I was not incapable of doing it, but it just a lot of my drawings I've never had really time to sit down and scan and bring into Photoshop. So today I'm taking this one out of the archive, and I'm gonna colorize it and go through the same process that I did with the previous drawing that I have done or tutorial, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with this one, showing more step by step, and also to show you that this one's just a little bit different compared to the other one, where we have pencil shading involved here, and I want to kind of keep that somewhat of a pencil texture look within my drawing, and not just have some sharp outline drawing that we had in the previous one, because I want to use the shading on this. I kind of like the shading on this one. But we are going to darken this up a bit and play around with some of the same tools that we did in the previous tutorial. Now there might be some fixing that we need to do. Again, all drawings are never 100% perfect. You can see here that the tongue kind of clashes with some of the gum line and the teeth. And we may need to fix some of the little edges, sharpen out some of them here. So this of course is going to require us to do a little bit of a cleanup as usual for pretty much any drawing that you want to do, so that we can then move forward in colorizing this character that we have here. So what we want to do is, first of all, let me just go into the scanning technique, the scanning process that I've done. Very simple. If you have a scanner, of course you just simply scan it. What I want to talk about is the resolution. If I double click on this, you're going to see that the image is very large. Now this is a drawing that's on an 8 by 8.5 by 11 regular paper size, and this has been scanned at 600 dpi. I wouldn't go no lower than 300 dpi, only because you're going to lose the quality, and your image is going to degrade below that. You really want it to be a high resolution, only because later you're going to worry about the size afterwards once it's colorized, and then you're going to retain the sharpness and quality. And there's a few options that we have within Photoshop that will allow us to either make the quality sharper or a little bit more anti-aliasing, depending on what we want. So that's one thing to think about, is to make sure also that your computer can handle an image this size. This is about 18 megs, almost 19 megabytes file size. But once we start getting into it and creating layers and whatnot, this will definitely increase in size. And if you have a slower computer or a computer with less RAM, you'll definitely run into some lag issues. So first thing first, we're going to double click the background here so that we can actually make it an active layer. And I always like to just duplicate it, so I have an original here in the back. And we're going to want this original because we want to retain the shading aspect of the character from the pencil drawing. We're going to use this layer on top to darken the the sketching and the black. We don't want it to be gray. We want it to actually be black. So again, I like to go into levels. You can go into brightness and contrast. But what I'm also going to do is, instead of going directly into levels, there's another option that you can do. You can actually do an adjustment layer and use levels. And the difference between an adjustment layer and an actual adjustment on the image is that one destroys the image and one doesn't. What I mean by destroying the image is that once it's applied, unless you do an undo, there's no turning back. It is done, and you cannot control it, the levels or the effect of the layer or the adjustment afterwards, unless you apply it again. With an adjustment layer, it is exactly what it is. It is a new layer that applies itself to the layer below it, that it's connected to, giving you the option to make the adjustments at any time, turn it off. So we're just gonna say this is character. Make sure I spell adjustment. Maybe we'll say black. Okay, and always make sure to click this use previous layer to create the clipping mask. So right now, as you can see here, we have an adjustment layer on top, and this is what's going to control it. And here is, we can just hide this. This is the controls of that adjustment layer. So right now I can turn it on and off, and you're not going to see much until I start playing around with the adjustments. So if I want to turn it off, I can turn it off. So that's one way that you can play around with adjustments. So what we're going to want is, we're going to do one thing like we did in the previous video. We're going to want to extract the black from the white. Now, how do we do that when we have gradients and not sharp outlines? Well, this is where having the layer duplicated and we apply it on top will come in to add this effect. So for now, what we're going to try and achieve is remove as much of the gray as possible and just retain the black. But in the end, once we achieve that using the adjustment layer, we still would want to flatten the image and extract the black from the image itself. because we cannot extract the dark black like we see here with an adjustment layer, because Photoshop will not see this in the channels correctly, because it's using an adjustment layer. So once we achieve the color that we want, the darkness, we have to then flatten this so that Photoshop then says, oh, okay, this is how dark it is, and within the channels we can then select the accurate black from the layer. But we're still not going to destroy this, we're just going to duplicate it afterwards. So let's just go back and select this, and we want to try and make sure that we get as much of this as possible. No, we can't worry about being perfect here. We'll do our best. So it may take some adjusting. And even if we get some of these little spots in there, that's fine, you know. It'll add to the effect that we want to achieve. Okay, I'm probably gonna have to come down here a little bit more to make it more darker. Okay, and okay, so we're gonna use this, and then what we'll do is we'll just put this in a folder and then duplicate this, and by holding on your control and hitting the E key, we are flattening this. So now we've created a layer that we're going to work with, but we still haven't cleaned it up yet. Most of the black specks and stuff that you see floating around are still there, but we can remove this afterwards if you want, or just simply go in and hit your make sure I'm hitting the right tool, your eye first, select the color, and then you can either use your select tool and then just fill it in by holding down your control backspace or control delete. It depends on which color you have selected here. We're just going to also double check to make sure that it is white, which it is. Okay. Alright, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just zoom ahead a little bit here in this tutorial, and I'm going to go in and clean up some of the stuff around here, some of the edges, make them a little sharper, and then we'll come back to extracting the image from, or the black from the image, and then we can start working colorizing in the character. Okay, so what I've been doing here is I wanted to kind of show you, and I thought it would be important because I did want to make this in depth. Just a couple of techniques that I use that is very simple for fixing your drawing. Now, I like to use the line tool to kind of sometimes straighten out some of the edges, or I'll use the lasso tool and just come in and grab some of the edges inside like so, and just and then just place a color on top of it to kind of smooth it out a bit. But because of the process that we're going to be doing, we don't really need to worry about the edge being too smooth. What we really need to worry about is all of this artifact stuff that Having problems with my short hotkeys today. Because it will probably, when we do the channel extraction of the color, we will get some of this speckle stuff, and we don't want as much of it we can on the outside. So like if there's a lot of it here, we want to try and remove as much of it as possible, so that we can avoid having to do some major cleanups afterwards. So I'm just going to switch my color so I can use my Alt instead of my Control. So yeah, this is probably the most time-consuming part, but like I always say, it's very crucial to invest the time in cleaning up your image, because in the end, you do want to try and get the best quality out of your character design, especially when you're coloring it. Even though some of this can be cleaned up during the process of extracting the black. But I want to make sure that some of the stuff is easily removed and I don't have to come back again. So I'm going to continue going around and checking places. Also, it's very important, because we're going to probably use the select tool to select certain parts within the character. We want to make sure that some lines are connected very well. Let me see if I can find an example. We'll look here, for example. Like here we have a kind of a slight break. Now this, if we wanted to select within here with our wand, if the bridge between here, the colors is not strong enough, we'll also end up getting this section as well. So we want to make sure that wrong color again. We just want to make sure that, you know, the bridge between it is good. And we also have some color here which we want to remove. We want to remove all this red stuff and this artifact stuff. So simply just going in and making sure your layer is selected. And here we're going to do the adjustment layer to the image, right, so that it's permanent, and we're going to desaturate it. There we go. So now we have no color, and when we try to extract it, we don't have to worry about any miscommunication between the channels, and we'll have a clean black outline. There we go. So if you have any questions regarding some of the process that I've done so far, by all means, you know, give me a comment. I'll answer as intuitive and as clearly as possible. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue going in and just cleaning up a few spots. There's not much I want to clean. You know, there's a few spots here in specs that I'll just go in and remove the dots and make sure that my canvas is clean. Nope, wrong. Okay. So we're back in a sec. Okay, so I pretty much have finished off what I want to do to this. Except for I just realized that I have some of this still down here. Um, let's go. I keep forgetting. I keep hitting the wrong key for some reason here. All right, so I cleaned up the best that I wanted, and actually I see two spots again. Always happens when I do tutorials that I always find these little places that just annoy me. So I'm just going to come in here and just clean this section. This is a concept design anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I just see a dot on my screen. I need to clean my screen. What's this? Oh, it needs to be removed. Okay, I think we are ready. Okay, so now we're ready. We're going to go into our channels and we're going to select the black. Now, in order to select it, you have to hold down your control key and select one of the colors. It doesn't really matter because we only have black and white. We don't have any other colors, so it's only going to select the black. So we can click on red, green, or blue. It doesn't really make a difference. And then what we're going to want to do is just go in and do a new channel. Actually, no, we don't want a channel because we're not doing any masking. What we want is a path. So we're going to go into make work path, and what this is going to do is it's going to take the marquee selection. Let's zoom in here if we can, because I'm not into layers, sorry about that. It's going to take all of the black that has been selected here, and as you can see, there's little lines going around that's selecting the color. Now it's not going to grab all of the pixels. It's going to grab the most darkest one that it could find within the black palette here. But it's going to create a path, a work path that follows all of this, and from there we can use that to create multiple fills of this black color. I hope this makes sense. Again, if it doesn't, just leave me a comment and I'll do the best I can. To me, it just comes natural to use this. I don't know a lot of the in-depth technical aspects of why it does what it does. All I know is that this is what it does. So just being very honest with you here. But now that we have this selected, okay, we want to make a work path. And when we do create a work path, we're going to get an option that's going to come up. And it's this option. It's the tolerance. I recommend playing around with this to get the perfect work path flow, because it's going to calculate for you the number of points it's going to need to make the path. The more points, the more jagged it will be. The less points, the more smoother it will be. So we're going to play with the tolerance. We're going to start with 5.0 for now, and we're just going to see how this turns out. We might have to change this. So I'm going to go OK. And Photoshop crashes. Nice. Okay. Well, we'll try this again. Okay. So it automatically opened up the recovered. Now, the reason why it might have done this is because the file might be too big, which is very unlikely because my computer is substantially powerful when doing a lot of these high quality or high res imaging. I think it's mostly due to the plugins or the drivers itself that runs Photoshop, especially now that I'm running on Windows 10. A lot of issues have been occurring because of Windows 10, and this could be another main issue why we just had a crash. Um, Again, you could thank Microsoft for their wonderful technology that's never up to date. But we'll go back again and create a work path. So hopefully this time we won't get a crash. So we're just going to save this as recovered. Okay, and then we're going to go in and select the color again. And then we're going to go into path and make work path. Let's cross our fingers here, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to go. And it crashes again. Okay, so there's a possibility we might not even be able to do this. Alright, so I'm going to just stop the video and I'm going to see if I need to actually maybe reboot my operating system to see if there's any lost memory. So I'll be back. Okay, I have to apologize about that. It seemed to be there was some issues with Photoshop. So what I did was I upped the memory just a little bit, and I changed the compatibility format from Windows 10 back to Windows 8, and I was able to do a couple of tests, and lo and behold, I got my work path created. Now I did a work path of 0.5 just to see if it was a matter of the tolerance. But the lower the tolerance, the more edges or points are used to calculate the outline or the black. So at 5.0 we get this very sharp, smooth kind of, I call it artistic kind of style of design. It's the same as the previous video when I did the humanoid character. It kind of comes out really funky, and I kind of really like this this sporadic pixelated or just weird jaggedness. So we're going to leave it as that. Here we can see the version that I did at 0.5. It really went too much into detail with all of the color of the black. So this one we're going to trash. We don't want that one. We're going to keep our work paths here for another time. But for now, we got what we need to continue coloring this character. So now, because it converted it, we probably lost some of the detail of the edges. So there's a possibility that we might need to go in and add a few points here and there, just so that okay, that is weird. Oh, did I select the wrong? I think I did. This is not the cleaned up version, unfortunately. I'm just gonna go back here. Yeah, it was this version that I did. It was supposed to be this one. So we'll do it again, just so that for visual purposes you can see what I've done. So left mouse button click while holding down the control button on any one of the colors. RGB, red, green, doesn't matter because we only have two colors anyway. If you really want to make sure, you actually can go to where is it, mode, and just go into grayscale. But then you're going to have to convert it back to either RGB or CMYK, so you can have color. So let's go back to our work paths here and remove this. Now hopefully we won't get a crash. Now we might get a crash because I am running my video recording software in the background. So we're just going to cross our fingers and hopefully nothing will happen. If it does crash, then I'll do it off camera, kind of method here, but it seems so far so good. And voila, we get what we need. Alright, so now that we have our work path, again, holding down your control key and left button pressing onto your work path, it's going to select the work path of what we just generated, and then we're going to create a new layer, and then by holding down Control Shift and then the button I, or letter I, we're going to invert it because we want to color the inside, not the outside. And then depending on which color you have selected, if you hold down, you press your X, you can switch colors back and forth. Now when your color's on top, you hold down your Alt key and then backspace will fill it in. If you have the color underneath, if you hold control key and then backspace, you will select the white, but we got black, so that's good. So Control D to deselect, and here we have our cleaned up version of the character. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start coloring this character in, but I always like to choose a solid base color first. And how do I go about doing that? Well, I always choose my wand tool and I'll select the outside of the character and make sure that any of the space that's outside of the character is what I'm choosing. And we're going to see if we missed anything that it didn't select, or selected something that we didn't want it to select. So we'll just go below the layer, create a new layer, and choose something in your color palette. I don't know what color you might want. You want them to be green or a greenish color. We just want a base color. Yeah, I guess that would be okay, because we can apply a color effect here, so we can play with the color or play around with the effects channel, or the color channel, sorry. So we're going to Control Shift again, invert it, and then for me Alt backspace to fill it in. And there we go. So now we have a base color for our character. So we can use this base color as our main color if we want. But what we want to do is now apply some shading, some tones to this to give it a little bit more realism. But we also want to apply the drawing that has been done right here. Is this the one? I have to make sure I'm choosing the right one. Multiply normal. Okay, so this is the one that has the shading. So we'll just move this one down. Okay, and we want to get that shading in here. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't lose this one, so I'm going to duplicate it, hide that one, and I'm going to use this for my base, or my main shade. So I can actually go in, and if I want to, select the outside again of this image, use my wand tool, going in and selecting it, Control Shift invert it, and then going here, and I can apply, and I think I wasn't supposed to invert it if I want to apply a mask. No, that's perfect. So we apply a mask, so we're not really destroying the main image or altering it too much. We're going to keep it there, and we're going to apply adjustment layers to this so that we keep the original image or the sketching. So, but we still don't see our color underneath, and we want to see our color underneath. So I would normally go into the layer adjustments here and choose multiply, but we're not really getting to see much of it. So let's start from darken because we don't want normal or dissolve, and we're just going to use the down arrow key to kind of go through the list and see which one works best for us. So it doesn't seem to work that well. It's just something that I wanted to test. So we'll just bring this back and click OK. And we're going to stick with using multiply or overlay. Overlay. No, overlay gives you kind of that color burn. Multiply will be our choice. Okay, so what we want to do is basically come in and make a new layer adjustment and darken up those shadows a bit. Okay, so we grab our adjustments here all the ways down, and you can see that it's kind of giving us a little bit of dark shadow here. Okay. Now I know it looks kind of weird right now, but in the end, trust me, it's going to look a lot nicer. We could just remove this altogether and stick with this, but I kind of want to use some of the gradient of the sketch that was done in the original to be applied on top. Okay, so now comes in to figuring out how we're going to do some of the shading. There's a few possibilities about how we can go and shade it. We can go in with a brush and gently go in along the edges, which we can apply this method as well, or we can select pieces of the creature's body parts, nails separately and stuff like that, and add some gradient effects. There's a number of ways we can go about doing it. We could use all the methods, but we're going to slowly go in and make some modifications just to see what we can get out of this. We're also going to select some of these scales here, and I'm going to apply a texture as well. So let's go ahead and actually apply a texture first. So we're going to select this, and you know what, this yellowish orange is not really doing it for me, so let's go in and choose a color. Is this it? Okay. Effects, color overlay. Okay, it was not updating for some reason, so I was like, you know, what's going on? So, kind of can maybe choose like an olive green. I don't want to go black because then the character might be just a little too black, too dark to work with. So maybe I'll just go like an olive, a light olive gray. There we go. Preview was turned off. So let's go back in and play around with this a little bit. Then I'm gonna go there. Alright, I think this is kind of like the olive color that I want. Okay, now it's on top. We'll just turn that off for now. We're going to go in shading. Generally, let me see if this needs to be desaturated. There we go. That was probably the problem. We had some color in here that was causing some issues with the multiply effect. So we'll leave it like that for now. And now we're going to go back on top here and we're going to hold down Control and click on our layer, and then we're going to create a new fresh layer, and then we're going to go in and we're going to select our black and choose a brush, holding down the B key. Okay, make sure that your brush is large enough. Okay, I need to go to new brushes, smaller brushes, reset brushes. Yeah, whatever. Because this is not the brushes I want. It's selecting from the brushes here, brush presets. Smoothing. Brush presets. There we go. Well, we'll try this one for now, see how it works. Or try this one. Alright, so with your brush, and also make sure that your opacity is down a bit. Well, like 15, 16, doesn't matter between there. And we're going to start going in very lightly and do some painting. This is where we're going to start adding some of the shades. Okay, this is not working because of the brush. Ah, here we go. This is the brush that I needed. Okay, and go back and change down the opacity to like 15 or something like that. You can also change the flow, but I just rather change the opacity. So we're going to go in and slightly do some shading here. Blend in the dark tones a bit. And make my brush small. And make sure that I get one. Now, as you might not be able to tell, I'm using a mouse. Now, this would ordinarily be done using a Wacom pad or some type of pad tool or pen tools where you can apply different pressures to get fine point to more wider brush size. This is the difference. Unfortunately, I don't have a Wacom pad at the moment, but it is something that I will be looking forward to getting myself. But for the time being, I actually do not that bad of a job just using my mouse. So I'm going to say for any beginner, you're pretty much going to be stuck with a mouse anyway. So this is one quick way of learning how to use your mouse accurately when you're doing the color design or coloring or character design as well in this method. So we can just come in here, do a little coloring here, just lighten it up, give it some more tone. So I'm going to speed up this process, and we'll come back to what we're going to continue doing next to make this creature amazing looking. a base kind of shading going on here, we're going to apply a texture to our character. Regularly, I use a simple noise texture, but we'll choose something else. We'll see what we can do here. So to create a texture, basically you're going to copy the main base color that you have and fill it with white. And because white naturally, when you apply, say, a multiply, it really doesn't affect anything. But we haven't really applied any kind of effect yet, so we're going to see how this is going to work. Now we can go into our distortion, actually noise. We could play around with these if you like. Pixelate. These ones are very hard to choose sometimes, to make it seem like the shapes are contoured, because everything is uniformly vertically and horizontally when it's generated. Sometimes using clouds are kind of good. Let me try to see what we can do with clouds. Okay. Not too bad. Okay, and if we use multiply, this is what we're going to get. Now, let's see if we can do something with this. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my new adjustment layers, and I'm going to use my hue and saturation. And what this is going to allow me to do is, if I choose colorize, I'm actually going to be able to modify the color of that layer. So if we just jack it up, I can go in and make some neat modifications here and start playing around with some wacky, funky colors. Like so. And we're going to leave it like that. And we'll just group this so that we don't accidentally try and overlay something on top of the effect. And now we're going to apply another texture. And this time we're going to go with the noise. So just go here, add it, create another white layer, and then we go into our filters, noise, and we're going to add noise. Always use Gaussian. I just find that it looks better for some reason. You jack up the amount or turn it down a little bit. Let's see what this one looks like. Nah, I like this one better. Okay. So then from there, again, we can go to multiply. But let's just go down through the list and see if there's something we can find here to make our texture come out a little bit better. Okay, and we're also going to apply a slight blur. Okay. Now again, we can come back here and start playing around with our color, or we can come here and play with our blends. So we can kind of mix the two layers together. Okay, so we're going deeper and deeper and deeper. Now we can keep on continuing adding more layers until we can get the right color and texture of the character. But for now, I'm going to leave it as is. What I want to start doing is start adding some other colors to the character to give it a little bit of just a little bit of nuance, personality, pretty much. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to start selecting some of the body parts to change some color. Maybe we're going to make these spots look like giant scales on them, which I think they're technically meant to be. You can see kind of here in the arms, they're kind of scaly, like they're rock scales or really hard, bony scales. So we're going to go in and make sure that we select our proper tool here. I'm going to group this one, but just so that I don't get fused, I'm just going to go in and just leave my base color on and work with my black outline. So let's go in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the wand tool and we're going to select inside. And now before we color this in, we want to expand the selection. And the reason for this is so that we don't have a weird difference between the black and the color inside, where there might be an anti-aliasing or some sort of transparency, which is going to look like they're separated. What we want to do is make sure that the color is going to come out a couple of pixels behind the black, so it fills it in nicely. So we're going to expand it by 2, and then create a layer behind our main black and fill it in with white if we want. So we have our first color here. So now we can go in and start modifying all of these right now, and just creating some of them could be together. Modify, contract by 2. Okay, and then we're going to select another layer. This is where the layers will start eventually building up, but it's good to have full control. If you wanted to, you can make all this one layer, but if you're going to use like layer effects like gradients and inner shadows and stuff like that, it'll affect everything, but you might want to have a little bit more control per object or per layer. So that's what I like to sometimes do. For these ones here, we're going to connect them together, the little tiny ones, but for the big ones, I'm going to make these separate. I'm going to contract, I want to expand. Okay. Now I'm not sure if I made a mistake, and I did. I noticed that. Okay, so I contracted it instead of expanded on this one. So you see what I mean? You'll get this white border around it. That's not what we want to do. Okay, so I'm going to select another layer and then fill this one in. This one here, we're just going to select it and delete it. choose our wand tool, expand it, and this should be it. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do all these, and then we'll continue coloring them in. Some of the scalings kind of separated from the tone of or the color of the body, and you can turn everything back on. Okay. And I'm just gonna see here. Can we integrate some of that tone in there? I think this was the texture, huh? Let's just zoom in here and see what this is. Okay, so we're going to name this so that we know what it was. So it was noise. Okay, now we're going to go here and we're going to select the colors, each one of these, and we're going to add some effects to this. So we're going to try a bevel and emboss, and let me see if we increase the size here a bit. Okay. More bevel. Slight bevel. Okay. Smooth it out. Add some opaque. Change the color here just a little, tint it up a bit. We could actually go in and change this color if we want. Select one of the colors here and make it a little slight darker. So we have something that's similar to the skin tone. Okay. And could also go in and add a gradient color. And change this gradient color to something, again, similar to what we have here. Something a little darker. Okay. Then from here we can just copy the layer style and apply it to everything. So we get this linear effect from the inner shadow and gradient. So it's consistent throughout the character. Now we can go in and apply more effects to this. This I'm going to leave up to you. These are techniques that you're going to learn on your own, and also learn as I progress through doing more tutorials, some of the things that we can do. Just to give you an example, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that everything I have here is selected and put under a folder. Let me zoom out here, make sure that these are also selected. So this is the scaling, correct? Okay, so if I was just to go in, for example, and I see here, and I want to look like just a little bit of a more of a what do you call it, contrast or a reflection effect, I would actually use my brush tool and go about, say, about 50 on this, select my white and just come in like so, and for some reason okay, just make sure that nothing's selected, and we'll just move this layer up. Okay, and then I would use a brush tool to kind of do this, but we're going to actually use it at max and increase the brush tool size and just come in like so. Okay, and then possibility go into the filters and do a slight Gaussian blur on this. So when we zoom out, you can see it's got a little bit of it kind of look like a reflection here. So little things like this we can apply afterwards. Again, still more to the character itself, but we're going to still move forward, and we're going to start working on the face and then the claws, because we don't want the claws to be the same color, and then we'll be pretty much finishing up on the character here. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to start coloring in the mouth and the teeth here on this character. And I come to decide because the sketch was not cleaned up enough. We can see that there's still some issues here with some of the parts. I'm going to omit the sketch on top of this and just use the airbrushing that I've done on it for the shading, and then tweak it again later. You're going to see most likely in the final outcome of this image a lot of modifications that are going to be added for the final result. But we're going to right now go into the head part. We want to make sure that we got our black outline here, and we're going to use the wand tool, and we're going to start selecting parts of the tongue. Now you can use white, and I want to just also test something here because we're going to be okay. Select. There we go. I want to be able to see if my white's going outside of the black. So right now it's not. It seems to be perfectly inside. So now that we have this, we're going to go in and choose a color for this. Alright, nice deep red. But maybe we won't go red. Maybe we'll go with a purple. Something along that line. Give it a little bit more colorful, sinister look. Maybe we want to go a different route with this character in terms of coloring. Should we use that or should we use red? I don't know. I'm thinking here. A little bit orangey red. That's much better. Oh, yes, Windows, I know. Okay, So now we're going to go back and we're going to select inside of the mouth. And as you can see, it's selecting more than it should. So that means we have to look and see where it's cutting through. And from what I can see here, it's cutting right here. So we're going to have to use our line tool, change it from shape to pixels, and we have black selected, and then we're just going to cut into it here. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, as long as we can separate each of the pieces. Okay, that should be enough. I'm going to see if that's going to work for us. There we go. So we have the inside of the mouth. And we're going to expand that. We didn't do any expansion on this, but it turned out to be okay. But I'm going to do it to this one. And we're only going to use 1 pixel. Okay. And then we're going to go in here. And we're going to choose black. And why black? Well, we're going to play with the opacity on this. Like so. Alright. And next we're going to do the teeth. I guess we're going to go with white on the teeth, but I'm going to do top and bottom layers. And we're going to modify and expand. Okay. And we're going to use white. And we'll change those colors afterwards. But right now I just want to separate those pieces. Okay, come in. Now if for some reason a part of it's not selected and your wand tool can't get it, you can actually select your lasso tool, hold down your shift key until you see the plus, and you can actually come in here and select what it is that you want, just so that you make sure that you get what you want. Now I'm not going to get that in, so I'm going to make sure I select it myself. Same thing here and here. Okay, and I want this piece as well. Okay. So we're just going to go around and make sure we have everything that we need. Okay. So let's just zoom out a little bit, and now we're going to expand this, of course, by 1. And then we're going to do a fill. So here we go. We have our teeth and our tongue separated. Okay, so let's go in and colorize these teeth. So holding down your control key and hitting on the layer that you want to work on, we're going to go in and use, well actually we're going to create another layer on top, because this is going to be our shade. And top, teeth, shade. And we're going to grab our brush, make it small enough here. And the opacity, just turn it down just around 3. I guess we'll see what we can do with this. Oh, we're using white. It's not what we wanted. Okay. And let's zoom in a little bit more here. Brush. color in this, give it some shadow on the teeth. Just come around here. Here. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. Select our teeth, create another layer on top. I'm going to call this bottom. Ambient shade. Select our brush. Gently come in. Now it's almost looking like we're applying a bevel here. Wouldn't suggest doing it. Because we have two teeth under the same layer, you might not be able to get the same effect that you want. Okay. And I think what we might do is also apply a little bit of shading to this as well. So choose another layer and use my accidentally expose the mask. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so we'll leave it like that, and we'll still go in with the brush. Okay, I'm going up just a little bit. Just give it a little bit of darkness around here. Okay, and there. Alright, now we want to apply the same thing to the tongue. What I wanted is a little texture on the tongue as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another layer. This time I'm going to expand. Select, modify, expand by 1. And then I'm going to fill this with white. And apply a noise. Turn it down a little bit. Okay. And then filter, blur that up a bit. Okay. Then you can go into multiply, see if one of the other shades will work. Linear burn, maybe it might be the one. Yeah, we'll go with Linear Burn. Linear Burn. Okay, so then we're going to now color this in, but we're going on top of the red, or the texture, and we'll add our black shade. Okay, maybe turn this down just a little bit. And I think we'll leave the rest as is. Okay, so I'm actually going to blur this just a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the claws, and we'll leave it for now in this tutorial. So so you can continue going forward with whatever drawing that you have, and basically follow the same principle. It's pretty much the same thing over and over. It's just you need to take your time to go in and choose what you want to color, and you know, follow some of the techniques where I go in and I separate some of the pieces so that I can color them in later on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue. I'm going to separate the claws, make them their own color. I'm going to play around with the color of the creature a little bit, maybe add a couple of tones in here. And I'm going to color the rocks or the stony scales on them as well, and show you the final product. Alright, so this is Bernard Parsons here at Studio Parsons with another tutorial on using Photoshop and coloring and creating your characters in Photoshop. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, by all means leave me comments in the comment section below here. You can also visit my website, which is www.studioparsons.com, and send me an email. If there's any Photoshop questions you might have, I'm more than glad to answer them. If there's something specific that you would like to see done, by all means let me know, and I'll get on it right away and have a video tutorial done for it. And other than that, I again thank you for watching. Don't forget to like my channel, and share if whenever possible to other social media networks, so that other people can get to enjoy my tutorials. And don't forget to subscribe. Alright, so this is Bernard Parsons signing out, and thanking you all for watching another video tutorial. Bye bye.